so difficult to keep a bit of sight around this place.
Samech Vav, Ches Sivan, Patopshim Samech Ches, page Kuf Samech Zayin.
Alright, so we saw in the view of the concept of Ani Havaya Loi Shonisi, we saw that the Gilui Elakus, which brings about the Savas HaOlamas, can't be compared to the Slabsis of the Neshama Baguf. We saw that the union the entry of the neshama into the body, kedei lahachi yosei, is an union of what we call tefisa. It's not only his slabshas, but it's also tefisa, that nitfas mamish in the Evrei Aguf, the neshama, is literally grasped and caught, almost as we might say, in the Evrei Aguf, and therefore they cause a union of shinuim in the Gilui HaNeshama. And we brought the dogma from Tzmicha Mikatnes Legadlus that there is in the Adam. We pointed out a very interesting chiddush that BMS, the koiches which are not mamish etzem and nefesh, even though we saw here the Alter Rebbe calls them in Tanya Legabi the Levushim, the Alter Rebbe calls the Eser Bechinas Chabad and the Sheva Midas. He calls them Atzmus HaNefesh in at least 2 or 3 places in Tanya. He does that. So we saw that all of those midas, all those koiches, are b'shleimus, are ki efshoriyas that the Eibishter gives to those powers by all people, by all Yidden. They're given those koiches of the nefesh alikis b'shleimus. And we saw that the shinuim are only mitzad the Eivorim. And in the Eivorim Gufa, different factors and different inyonim what the Eibishter either by Shkocha Protius, mitzad Milmaila, or the Odom can bring on himself, mitzad Milmata, that the Evrei Aguf are not Kalim, or they're varying Kalim. There's different forms and Eifanim in the Eivorim and in their what you might call their delicacy and their ability to be Mekabel, Oyer. Well, that is what causes a shinuyim mikatnes legadla. So when a Adam is a cotton, so then the Eivorim are unable to be mikabel the nefesh. The union growing in gadlas is dachachas. It's like a edelkeit and a growing and an ability to be mikabel the nefesh in the Evrei Aguf, and that's one of the concepts of growth. What growth indicates that the kelim not only increase in their physical size, but they develop pnimis and they become kelim legilui hanefesh. But that's not b'shove eitzel kol b'nei Adam. Therefore, some are makabel the koiches in a higher even, and therefore they're more given to ruchnis and to development of the koiches in bechol oifanim, in many different Eifanim, and others less, or there can be more emphasis on certain koiches compared to others. We find by people, some have a leaning more toward a certain union, others have a gift, as you might call almost, for another union, but that's dependent on the kelim. But in mitzad the etzem koiches, everybody's the same. So we saw that that's the union of the shinuyim which occur in the nefesh, but they do occur, in other words, that the nefesh is not able to reveal itself with its full intensity, even in the prote koiches, because of the union of the kelim. And that's how we saw it. And then we said an even greater chiddush, that even the lamaila mi'a koiches, the etzem nefesh, albeit that's not mamish etzem atzmus nefesh mamish, ki chelik mizeh harei nishal lamaila, aber auch upon him the union for yechida shebenefesh, or dargis which are doimel there, even they are somehow or another mugdar, they are some way confined and what you might call almost fenced in the body through the fact that the nefesh enters the body lahachi yoisei. That means that even the atzmius of the nefesh l'mayla from the es of bechinas is also limited in that particular body. And we put the story of Rav Amanena Saba being trapped in a dangerous place, and Eliyahu Hanavi went to rescue him, and he had to be mislabish in a goof in order to do that. Therefore, he wasn't able to be at the Idra with Rabbi Shimon, because once the neshama enters a body, no matter what sort of neshama it is, then it's somewhere fenced or caught in that particular body, and therefore can't be in another goof, even if it's the nefesh of Eliyahu Hanavi. Well, that was the Indian that we saw, that the slabshus in the body causes a hagdora even in the etem nefesh. What that indicates that all aspects of the nefesh, even those which are beyond the eser koiches, are all affected, and they're all caused certain limitations. And limitations means interrelations with the kli, which means hagbola, be'ezish or even, all of that occurs through the entry of the neshama into the gur. So now we go further. Mashein came Mashahu is Borach Machaya es Kulom. Whatever we see the Colossian Apostle, it's a Pasuk in Nehemiah, where we bring it every day in davening. Ato Machaya es Kulom. Whatever the Eibishter gives life to all the elements, or Mahava Isom me Ayin Layesh, because it's well known that the highest of every nivra is not only just its life force, but at the same moment, it's also its being created every second. Mi'ayin le'yesh. We've already started Shara Yichud. Well, that's what's mavur over there. Barichas in the prochem that we're learning now in Shara Yichud ve'emuna. Mahave oisom mi'ayin le'yesh. Ein atzmusi is borach malubash ve'nitfas bohem chas v'sholem. We can't possibly say that the Eibishter's essence is in any way malubash. It doesn't enter the Oilamas as like a neshama into a lavush. He's not at all. He remains completely moved out from them, even though he is machaya them, and he's kemuvan. He's not nitfas. In other words, that's almost it doesn't need to be said that he's not nitfas bohem chas v'sholem. So how does it work? Rak bidvar Hashem shomayim naasu v'uveruach piv kol tzva. In other words, that the whole key svara to that is that how can it possibly be that the Eibishter does actually bring about the Oilamas mitzad atzmusei, and afal pikein he's not nitfus by him klal uklal. We went with the simple principles that we had before, that wherever there's a hashpah from a giver to a receiver, how much more so to a maker, like the Eibishter makes everything, then l'chora he must in some way be involved in it. So we say that as far as the Eibishter is concerned, all these things occur, but he's not involved in them or in any way malubish or nitfas b'hem b'klal. And how can that happen? Because Var Hashem is the mokeh of the highest and the making of all the tzva'om, of all the hosts of the Shomayim, and also including the Oretz. Even though that particular posik mentions only the Shomayim, but it's a posik in Tilim, as B'dvar Hashem Shomayim Nasu, V'ruach Piv Kol Tzva'om. So we see that there are two inyonim. There's a Dvar Hashem, but that's the actual oisius of the Dibur, and then there's Ruach Piv, or that's the highest pnimi of the maybe we could say it's the highest chitoni. It's the Ruach Piv, that's the spirit of the mouth, which is the actual transporting koyach of the Dibur. So there's two inyonim. There's the oisius of the Dibur, and then there's the ruach, or what's called in the Lashon of Chassidus, the hevel, like the breathing, warm breath of the Dibur. So Lamaila also there's Dvar Hashem and Ruach Pi. And so that's the teretz why it is that the Eibush is not nitfus in the whole Bria. And it's well known that that's what the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya in Perek Kof, when he begins to explain how all of the Eilamas didn't cause any shinui, boy is but. It's similar to the point being made here, he says, "Mipnei she'habriya, v'briyas hisavas kol ha'olamas, lo hoya ela mi b'bchinas diburei yizborach." Only from the Indian, from Dvar Hashem Shomayim Nasu. And since I say it was only mid diburei, then that's the answer how it's not teifes, or it's not goyim any slapshus or shinui boy is bara. Now we'll soon see what's the beer of the prote asfara. So in order to go ahead with that, we have a few lines now of what is the beer of that sfara. First of all, the Rebbe warns another in it. He said, "V'af she'ein lo demus haguf, ach dibra Torah kil shein b'nei Adam." He said, even though it's not shot to say dibur by the Eibishter, you can't really say he speaks, because the infant speaking is related to a body. V'ein lo demus haguf, ach dibra Torah kil shein b'nei Adam. Even though the Eibishter doesn't have even the similarity of a body, is nonetheless the Torah spoke kil shein b'nei Adam. Well, that's a klal in the Gemara brought down in many places in Shas, that even though it's not shot to imply certain inyonim to the Eibishter, nonetheless the Eibishter describes even himself as having those inyonim, or in some way relating to his created beings through those inyonim, even though it's not preshita and moving mi'atzmi, that those inyonim are not shaykh to him. So the Gemara says, how can that be? Because it's a klal that the Torah spoke in the lashon of Bnei Adam in order that they should be able, through appreciating their own experience and how the things are etzlam, they should be able to have some moshel at least, but the moshel v'nimshal, to understand the inyonim how they are l'mayla in Elikus, and that's the pshat. What the Gemara brings out, the mokeh for that whole statement in Masechta Brachas, when I get to the tefillah of Chana, where she asks the Eivishter that he should see and look at her tsar, and but she doesn't have a child, v'chulu. And so the Gemara says, was shot that the Eivishter would see her. So the Gemara that dibra Torah b'loshen b'nei Adam. So therefore, even though it comes out lefizeh, that saying that the Eibishter speaks and using the whole mashal of speech in order to understand how he speaks and how he created the world is all it's only a very inaccurate mashal, and it's not really a emes of mashal mitanim shal. It's only the dibra Torah kiloshem b'nei Adam, that the Eibishter allowed the Torah to say certain inyonim, that through those human inyonim we'll be able to at least picture to ourselves ba'izishu derech, that it is l'mayla. Otherwise, as we're about to see shortly in the emes of Musik of Ein Seif, it's just not shayat that humans can really have any musag mitzad sichlam upon him in the inyonim how they are by the Eibishter l'mayla. So therefore, we only need to understand what does he mean by saying va'af she'ein demusa haguf. The Eibishter doesn't have even the similarity of a body. What is going on with that expression occurs. I think there's a period, we don't say it in Lubavitch, but there's a thing, there's a sort of a prayer at the beginning of the prayers in a lot of the Sidurim in Ashkenaz, I think maybe in Sfard, certain Nuskois, Yigdal, it starts over with something with Yigdal, it's a famous like poetic prayer that occurs right to... Huh?
It's a Sephardi thing.
Yeah.
It's a Sephardi thing.
It could be, I think it's also in certain Ashkenazi. Auch upon him, dort steht the Lashon, ein loi guf, ein loi demus haguf, or something like that, ein loi guf, loi demus haguf. He doesn't have a body and he doesn't have the how do you call it? The appearance or the similarity of a body, a demus haguf, which you might call the image of a body. So, I don't know if these things interest you, but that immediately involves a obvious kashya that if he doesn't have a guf, then for sure he doesn't have a demusa guf. Yeah, so what do you need to say? Ein loi demusa guf or ein loi guf. So I don't suppose it particularly bothers anybody. It's was it a taichit there? So the Shloh Kodesh is well known in the Sefer, the Shloh, it's put down in my Marich Siddur that the Shloh Kodesh asked that kasha, and he said, what should I have to say? Ein loi demusa guf, ein loi guf. So the Rebbe the Tzemach Tzedek brings it down in a Maimah in the Torah, and he asked the kasha b'shem Shloh, and he answered them a tirat. And in the Hemshech Chaim Beis, the Rebbe Rashab answers a tirat also on that shaila. And even though there's slightly different lashonos in the two tirutzim, we have to assume that basically it's the same inyan. But it's a very big chiddush, the tirat. The tirat is a very big, interesting inyan. What maybe we can just say it doesn't really bother anybody. So what's a big, interesting inyan was there? Because it seems to me that we give over these interesting inyans, and then they just drift into the air, or they stay on the tape, or on the gadget here, or whatever it is. And then next morning, if B'chesed of Arachamim, anybody B'chlal shows up, I don't know if anybody even dreams to repeat or to go over these inyans. So maybe there's no point in going into it all. He says he agrees with it. He says there's no point. So in that case, we should go further. Yeah. So anyway, was it the union? So the Rebbe the Tzemach Tzedek, he says over there that it's what we call aloi mi boy ka'oma. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's a big chiddush Torah. In the Gemara we say aloi mi boy ka'oma. Sometimes we say something in a Mishnah or a Brisa. We say that I didn't need to tell you that, but even that. In other words, that the first thing is a pshita, aim was a chiddush alpei, that I didn't really need to tell you because that's pretty obvious. But even that, even a bigger chiddush, and that's called lo mi boy koma. Lo mi boy zeh el gam zeh. The Shloh Kodesh, according to Tzemach Tzedek, can be answered, answering the Kashya, saying that lo mi boy, that he doesn't have the demusa guf. And this is the chiddush. That's obvious that he doesn't have a demusa guf, but you might have thought that he has a guf. No, the big chiddush is even that he doesn't have. So it's pink verkehrt. The guf that he doesn't have, that's obvious, isn't it? Even a demusa guf he doesn't have. I say no, the demusa guf is obvious. The guf, that I might have thought he does have. No, Khalil, he doesn't have that. He doesn't know that either. So I mean that's interesting. And in Ein Beis, the lashon is different. But sof you have to dray out that that's ultimately what is being said. So all I've done is made it worse. So the answer is that we can suggest what it means is the following: that the Musa Guf is referring to what you might call Biyah, the Olamas Anivroim. And they're called Demus because they are not really an emes of Matthias, they're not Elikus, they're only Nivroim. And nonetheless we say that over there, Ein Loi Demus HaGuf, that you can't say that there's any real shaykhs in those in him to Atzmuz Mahusa is Baruch, how he is Mitzadatman. Was it the Kiddush from Guf over there? So the answer is that the Esses Firas, and particularly the Inif and Ak, like we learned, the Esses Firas are called Gufim. You say it every Friday. You say Gufim Tkinas Loin. Yeah, in the Posach Eliyahu. Well, that's the first statement of the Tikkun Zohar. That's written Gufim Tkinas Loin, and that's referring to the Kelim of Olam Atzilas. In other words, in Olam Atzilas, everything is Elikut. And yet, nonetheless, there came about a in there for Kelim, what they're already Adova Mugda, they're already like Ad Kerikat, that the Tikkun calls them Gufim. And that's the Chiddush, that even a thing which is miyuchad with him, mamish betachas hayichud, and that's mamish a gilui mimenu, is a lot of a nifrat klal. So I might have thought that that's mamish ad kedei kach miyuchad with him, that we can say not only gufin kinastleit, but the gufim really is, they're miyuchad with him. And the father, he says, no, ain't I feel it there. I feel a goof, not only the Musa goof, but the bigger chiddush is that he doesn't have goof. I feel a goof at the rightness, because it looks to me as if that's mamish. Ad kedikach miyuchadito ishi yikore al shem goof. Rafu pikein, yeah, we say ein loy goof. Aval upon him. Since we're talking here about the Oilamus Beklal and how the Oilamus came about in an even from Bria Yetira Ve'ah, I see the father ever uses the expression Ein loy de Musa Hagu, because we're talking already in the Indian from Kid Musainu, what that's Indian from Bria Yetira Ve'ah. I see Kain Yesh Loim Abedar. Nonetheless, Dibur Terek Koloshin V'nei Adam. If we take Shahad Dibu Shemadaber Luzulosei Ein Bechinas Atzmius Shel HaNefesh Klal. He said, if we take in the mashal, that when you talk to somebody else and the dibur that goes out from you and enters the zulos, it enters the other person, is not the atzmis of your nefesh at all. Even though it's a very amazing power, that we find that the one and only way we describe the humans as compared to the inanimate kingdom, to the animal kingdoms and the inanimate kingdoms, is that we call them medaber. What that means is that the koyach hadibu is an amazing koyach, and it's not to be found anywhere in the creation ba'adam. And nonetheless, he said that the etzim inyaf and dibu, when you give it out to azulas, it really is not, it doesn't partake, and it doesn't have in it any gilu of your atzmius at all. Ki'im chitonius shel hanefesh bil vod. It's just purely the outward and most surface aspect of the nefesh bil vod. Ki, what is the raya? How do I know that? What is the hoichachel there? Ki, ein nechsa klal bi'anefesh mirui dibu shemedaber luzulos. He said, because nothing happens, nothing is literally detracted from your nefesh, from the tremendous amount of dibu that you medaber zulos. Now maybe that's a remez that you should be careful not to talk rave dibur. Nonetheless, even if you do talk rave dibur, if you just keep talking the whole time, and you're all the time, carrying on and nattering away and so on, to the zulas, it doesn't detract from your nefesh anything at all. Even though he talks a tremendous amount, he said nothing is at all detracted from the actual nefesh. In other words, that you're just talking away there and you're rattling on, and that doesn't affect the nefesh at all. It's just absolute chitonius bilvad from the nefesh. And that's what we see, that the Alter Rebbe, that's what he said over in Tanya, Perikah. He said, she yochel ledaber, dort steht, ein arich more. He said, she yochel ledaber diburim ad ein kates bashir. They think the Alter Rebbe. If you imagine a mensch in his lifetime, if you just let him talk, he would talk, mamish, ad ein kates bashir. They state that. In other words, that you can talk, and nonetheless, he says, it's not nogea in the nefesh, at all klal or klal. This is the Alter Rebbe Perikah. They state that mafurish. And there, the Alter Rebbe brings, he brings several days. That's in from the dibur itself. And he said, how much do we compare the dibur with the machshava? If that's a lawyer erech, like the machshava. Then if you compare the machshava to the midas that they gave rise to, then if you compare the midas to the moichin, and the Alter Rebbe goes, several daggers up, saying just how absolutely of no comparison the dibur is to the nefesh, even in the koiches of the nefesh. How much more so like the etzem pshitas of the nefesh? And that's what he brings over there also in Shara Yichud, where we're learning now, later on in Perik Ches. And in Perik Tes, he also is married with that the Alter Rebbe, how the dibur has no erech whatsoever, like the higher inyonim in the nefesh.
If someone were to just talk without taking a breath, he'd probably pass out or something.
Yeah, very nice. In other words, we see when a person talks, then he gives out, a certain hevel from himself, and if he just keeps giving out that hevel, then he'll weaken himself, he'll get schwach. So the embassy is that there is a little bit of a shaila in that, and we see, for example, if you blow, if you blow heavily, then you can get really weak from that. You can even faint if you blow too much, because you give out the whole. As it were, when you blow heavily, you give out the hevel, but you give out a hevel which is mamish miyuchet with the etzem shachtas of the nefesh with the go. And that's what he brings in Tanya in Perik Beis, to be right at the beginning. Man de nofach mitoiche inofa. That's the Lashon of the Zeh. Pirush mitoiche yuse p'niyuse. Shel odam moitzi. Behevel diburi moitzi hevel mipiv pekoya. Oh, he didn't mention dibur over there. That's where we go. That's mitoiche nofach. So it's brought down. When you talk, the inyan for dibur, you don't use that sort of hevel. You use a much more chitzonic type of hevel. But maybe what you say is that we see when a mensch talks, particularly if he talks for hours, that he gets tired. He gets formatted. If you ever become tired from talking, well, you guys, I don't suppose you're in that situation yet, where you have to talk in such a way that you can become tired from the talk. Right, okay? So we see that a man, if he talks, he can also become. I thought that was the question you were asking. So it's important considers the teretz of the kashi, that when you talk, you use all sorts of other energies, and you put all sorts of excitement and intensity and all sorts of aims and hopes that you've got in the dibur. They're all mishtativ, and then they demand a certain koyach in the mission. They cause him to become weakened. But the etzem hevel, a dibur that goes out b'shas a dibur, but that doesn't cause him to be necessarily weakened in any serious way.
He still has to take a breath in him.
That's because the Alter Rebbe brings in Likutei Torah in several places that the whole islapsis of the neshama in the guf is what we call bo'ivin shel rotzei v'shoiv. We hear about that earlier in the Hemsh of Barichet. And now mitzad dayin from rotzei v'shoiv you have to breathe. Oh, not that the etzem hevel and dibur itself is causing you really the problem. Amamira says the Alter Rebbe, says the Rebbe further, Eino nexer klal mea nefesh. Now there are certain kashas on that, but we won't go into them for a moment. Ubiemes, says the Rebbe, kein hu gam via koiches lagabi etzem nefesh. So the truth of the matter is that principle is not only true by dibur lagabi di etzem nefesh, but even on higher levels in the actual koichois. In other words, chokhmah, bina, das, and the sheva midas, what they're called the koichois. Even the koichois lagabi di etzem of the nefesh, which is higher than the koichois, also doesn't cause any chisoron in the nefesh. So he said it's not only dibur, but even higher than dibur, they also don't in any way detract from the perfection of the nefesh. She'eno nefesh klum mea nefesh alidei hakoichois. Ukemoi bashpos haseichel v'hamidas. If you want to give over seichel, you want to give over midas, so that doesn't cause any chisoron in the nefesh. And why does he say hashpos haseichel v'hashpos hamidas? Why don't you say when you use your seichel, you use your midas? Because that's more obvious. I mean, when you just think for yourself, then it would be hard to say that that's causing any real effort on the part of the Etzeman effort. Of where you make a deliberate effort to give over Seichel and to work with the Seichel in such a way that you'll be able to, in some way, give it out from yourself, then I might have thought that that's like an intensity in the Seichel, which is drawing from the essence. He said, no, even under those circumstances, it doesn't cause V'ein oishim shum shinui b'anefesh klau. Hainu lefi shebe'emes heim gam kein rach ha'ora levad v'yachmas anefesh klau. He said, and the reason that is because the koichos of the nefesh, like Chokmah Bina V'das, even though the Alter Rebbe calls them Atzmius HaNefesh, Legabi de Levushim, over they too, Legabi the immediate Atzmius HaNefesh, they are also only a Ha'ora Bilvad. Kemavoy in Tanya over there, when he brings it, the first one he says the Dibur Legabi the Esek Koiches is a Ha'ora Bilvad, he says Esek Koiches Legabi, one Legabi the other even are only a Ha'ora, the Midas Legabi the Seichel, and the Seichel Legabi L'maylam he says only a Ha'ora. Mamela, that's Mavur and Movin Miachmei, that you can't say that the Nefesh is Seichel. And that's what the Alter Rebbe brings in Torah over there in Pasha Vayikra, Ba'ariches, that he said some people wanted to taina during the generations that the Seichel, that was the Nefesh, because we call it Nefesh Hamas Keles. And in Tanya and Peri Gimel, the Alter Rebbe also calls it Nefesh Hamas Keles. So they wanted to say that in Cain the Nefesh was Seichel, that was your Nefesh. So the Rebbe said, Cholila b'chas to say that. The Alter Rebbe writes over a big piece, and he says that the Inim from Seichel is only a koyach b'derech ha'ora bilvad from the Nefesh. And the emes pshitas of the Nefesh is l'mayla mizeh harvei. That's what he writes over there. And then he said, I myself in Tanya, that's what he writes. Called the Nefesh, the Esek Koiches Atzmius HaNefesh. He said, Ein kavona b'zeh ela legabi ha-levushim. Compared to the levushim, then they are called more Atzmius of legabi the Mitius Peshitas of the Nefesh, then they are also only a ha'ora bilvad. So therefore he said, since they're only a ha'ora legabi the Atzmius, therefore they don't cause any chison. As in came, why did we say that the Bria was Dafke B'dibur in order to establish this point that doesn't cause any shinui? But we could have said it would be in Chokmasei or Bahavosei. Why do we say Dafke D'inifer Dibur? So the Rebbe said, Omnom, however, Adibur hu ha'ora chitzeni is yoiser. The Inifer Dibur is a much more chitzeni dika ha'ora than the Esaha Koichlis. That it doesn't make any shinui or chasaron even in the koiches. Not only legabi the etzem and nefesh, but even legabi the koiches, it doesn't make any shinui v'chisaron. In other words, if you talk divrei chochma or divrei bina, for hours, you don't weaken your koyach habina, or you don't in any way alter your koyach habina. Well, I see you guys are not in the mood for kashi yet, because it brought down in the Hemshech Ranat, Bariches, that when you talk something out, then it improves your seichel. But there's a power in Dibur, that the more you talk about it, the more you understand it in a better way. So Him Kain, what do you mean doesn't make any shinui in the koiches? So therefore the Rebbe is medactic to say it doesn't make any shinui b'chisorim. Shinui l'malyusa, maybe it could make. Oh, but that's not mitzad the fact that it's only a ha'ora. That's another zgula there is that the Eibush placed in the way a mensch functions, that if he talks, then it helps him as it were. Oh, that's another manas mitzad, another klal called no tchilosim be'seifim v'seifim b'tchilosim, but that's not to go into that at this particular moment. So therefore the Rebbe said that the ikka is that it doesn't cause any shinui or lack in your bina. It doesn't mean that since you've been talking so much now you've got less bina than you had when you started, you got to restock your bina or something. So therefore he said it doesn't cause any chisaron even in the koichos. So he said, V'ikar b'zeh hu ki hevel hadibur hu hevel chitoini legamrei. Now here what is word hevel? Hevel adibur hu hevel chitoini legamrei. Now what we should do is Hoe je meint dat de hevel, the dibur is a hevel chitoini legama. So it's brought down in Tanya, the Alter brings in Geras HaKodesh in chapter 5. And in other places in Tanya that we see that the Inyan of dibur has gotten itself like chitoinius upnimius. That we see that when you speak, there's created what's called voice. In other words, you can only speak when you have voice. And even though you may make signs and all those other things, if you lost your voice or whatever, but without a voice, then that's not called dibur, and therefore it's not an inyan dibur. Well, that voice comes from what's called a hevel, like a hot air or a vaporization which goes off from the excitement that the midas cause you inside your heart. In other words, that you don't talk, and you will never talk to somebody unless you are in some way aroused. In other words, you prefer to keep quiet, except for somebody who's got a sort of, how do you call it, the Davki wants to talk. The tendency of a mensch is to keep quiet. On the contrary, it's written in Pirkei Shiog L'Chochma Shtiko. It's put down over there that a hedge for the inyan of Chochma is quietness. You have to keep quiet. So therefore a mensch, mitzat certain inyanim, he keeps quiet. Why does he talk? What causes the whole inyan from dibur? Arousal. And that arousal is an emotional arousal. And because you become emotionally involved in what you have experienced, either in your mind or even in your midas, and you want to give that over due to an emotional reaction to your sviva, either because you have a what you might call a love for your sviva, or you have an admiration, or you have some meaning that you feel that's an obligation on your part to talk out, well then you speak. So that means that the heart became aroused. That's what leads to dibur. And that heart causes like a warm vapor that goes up from the heart from the arousal of the midas, and that enters the mouth, and the mouth makes it a little bit more magusham, and it got a bit more physical, as it were, and it goes out into the air. Mamish goes out into the air, and that's called hevel hadibur. Now that's a chitzenius of the dibur. The pnimius is the oisius that you put into that. In other words, you can blow into the air, or sort of just move your tongue into the air and give out hevel, but if there's no oisius, then it's not dibur, it's just cold. And therefore there can't be such a thing as a cold poshet. You can just go, that's called a cold poshet. And that actually sometimes has got miles to it, the truth is. And very, very profound miles, but we can't deal with everything at one go. That's inyan of the shoifas, so they're called poshet. Even called poshet gufas, they're called pnimi shel poshet. Well, called panim, we see that you plant into that coal, you plant into it oisias. But they come from a very high madrega. They come from the Alter right over there in Tanya. They come from pnimis chochma, what those oisias. Therefore, they're very pnimistic. And they plant into the dibur what you might call its meaning or its content. And then there's another thing that the mouth chops it into pieces and stops all the oisias just running one into the other. And that's what's called the hey moitois hapeh. There's like 5 giving out of the givings out of the mouth, and that takes all the 26 oisias and divides them into like consonantal movements of the mouth. For example, you got is one series of bases, so is bov, and so is mem. They're like the lips more towards the outer part of the mouth. And so those hey moitos appear, they like chop the dibur, or they make it into pieces. What they do is they take the oisias and they make the oisias more shy to the hevel, because the oisias will come from very high, and they go through the movement of these consonantal statements of the mouth, literally. But the actual basis of the dibur, without which it wouldn't be able to function, is this kol poshet which comes out, which is called hevel. That's what the Rebbe is referring to. So he said that hevel of the dibur is a very, very chitainistic thing. It's something which is coming from a warm air, which is mamish mugushim dik. It's already a physical thing which comes from your arousal of your midas or whatever is in the heart, and it's a very chitainistic thing. It goes out in a form of what you might call chitainis into the outer world around. But if it weren't for that, then the dibur wouldn't go into the outer world, because it's the hevel of the pear that takes it, or the hevel of the lave which comes through the mouth into the world. However, that's a very chitainistic thing which really is based in Gashmiyah, and therefore it's called hevel hapeh. So that inifan hevel is a dover achi chitaini, more chitainius than that. Like having the emitis and nefesh, you don't have. Well, you do, and that's what's called Maisa. You have another thing called Maisa, that's even more chitainius than the dibur. And the truth of the matter is that you can talk to people through Maisa also, and therefore it's brought down that there are oisius in Maisa. When you do things, you literally create impressions and ideas, and you can be very, how do you call it, expressive through your Maisa. But that's a different thing. That's another world all of its own. Maisa is very, very chitainius with ein kanamochem likanes lazeh. Suffice it to say that the inyan of the dover aki chitaini is dibur, or the hevel of the dibur which goes out from the lave. It never had to be marek a little bit, otherwise you wouldn't have hevel. You wouldn't know what have you been talking about dibur or some hevel at dibur. What's the move in the sentence from dibur to hevel at dibur? And therefore, because what the Rebbe is really altering is that there are certain parts of the dibur which are very, very pnimistic, and that's the inyan of the shurish of the yoishis which come into the dibur. Well, they're very high in the nefesh. The truth of the matter is, they're very high. They're what we call pnimis chochma. And therefore, he said that what I mean by saying the chitainius is the hevel dibur, and those yoishis ride on the hevel dibur. So they, as it were, somehow or another have to come down and unite with the hevel dibur, so they join up into the chitainius, into the passage outside the mensch. And therefore the dibur, it follows what he said, that the ikar which makes the dibur chitainius, and the ikar which makes it unaffective, like the nefesh, is this hevel dibur. That's why it's important to notice that. That's why the Rebbe puts in the lashon hevel. V'hainu lafisha hu ha'orech chitainius legamrei me'anefesh v'eina b'chinas atzmius klalu klal. Yours.
So Maisa doesn't affect the Etz Nefesh, neither does Dover, neither does even the Kochos. Is the Rebbe going to explain what is actually connected to the Etzem and what can affect it?
What does affect the Etzem and Nefesh?
Yeah.
Well, if you sit down and do a little bit of tshuva, then you affect your Etzem and Nefesh.
Isn't that connected to Dover and not
there's certain ways that the mensch is able to take all of these things what the Eibush gave him and sort of work back towards these Etzem and Nefesh. Well, that has to go with a drastic movement in him, which is not Lafi the Seder of the Gilun. Can you understand? And there was brought down a very amazing thing. I managed to state a very pivotal thing. With that, I mean, I don't like to take things aside, but that was a good question what you asked. We find a very amazing thing when Yidden are in need, and I would say that's what we should be doing now. I'm amazed that people don't do it. Is that you should shrei to the areas. When it's an Ace Torah or something like that, and Yidden pray, they pray in a loud way. They go, no, shrei. So what does it help to shrei? I mean, the Avish Malachi hears, does he? We does to shrei it. And nonetheless, it brought down in the Rebbe Rashab in who is this in Nine Basin? One of the Sheikhim, the Rebbe brings down there that it's Dafke Aine. Yeah, just in, I think it's even in Kunshas Amaya state does so. I bring the Rebbe to it as there's an Indian, the Dafke to shrei B'kol Godel, to shout, yeah, B'kol Godel. Beis Torah, that you want to kill him, make a Rosh Hashanah. So what are you shouting at the Eibush? He doesn't hear, but where did it go? So it's brought down that in from Tzayka, Dafki is an unusual thing, and you use the hevel and the dibur in a drastic way, or then you reconnect the dibur with a very atmistic assurance that it's got kemavur over there in Ranat. In other words, you make the dibur join up with a certain power that's got in the nefesh, which is not according to the ordinary giluin. Can you understand? It's not according to the normal theta, and therefore that's why I use the expression if you do for the tshuva, because tshuva is the inim of shloike derech harogya. Dali shur is the inim to jump over the wall. And the same thing, you can take these inyanim and jump back with them in such a way that you hammer almost at the etzem and nefesh, and that wakes up everything. And that's what you do when you shrei b'kol gadol. And then we state this in a pasuk. That's it in a pasuk. What word is here? It's by Yericho. By Yericho they blew shofars or something. They brought down the wall. But anyway, it's written by Yitzaku, Vayikru, B'koyel Gadol. It's in the Ksuvim daughter. Like when the Eden came back in the state of this, by the opinion of by Sheni. Vayikru, Vayitzaku, B'koyel Gadol. So it's in reference to that it says, what's the meaning of shraying? Oh, but here we're not talking about shraying. Here we're talking alter harogya. Shraying is where you take the dibur and you shoot it back in a drastic way at the end. Sure. Similarly to this, in other words, at least Marshall ben Nimshal, Klolos Bechinas Hachayis Animsha Po'ilamas, the generality of all the chayes what the Eibishter gave forth into the Eilamas, whom Bechinas Dibur Elyoin. Now we just said, Ein lo afilo demusa guf. Is Ein lo demusa guf is it was shot to say that he's got Dibur the Eibishter. What we mean to say is She'ein zeh b'chinas atzmiyus klal. We call it dibur Torah b'loshen b'nei Adam, to show that it's not that ashpua or that haor what the Eibishter gives forth to create the worlds. Is in the same oifen. Legabi him is what our dibur is legabi our etzem. But moving millions of times more. That's the way to understand why we call it dibur, because it has no reference klal le'atzmusay. But it's only a ha'ora. What a ha'ora means, like only a luminescence that doesn't affect the etzem, and in that gufa chitania. Yeah? In other words, we can't say that the Eibishter doesn't relate to the worlds at all, because he does. Otherwise, he wouldn't be described as the boirei. Yeah? What boirei means, yesh mi ayin. But the whole way that he does relate to them is only in our oifen of ha'ora, and in that ha'ora itself, there are different dargis, the hainu chitonius of the ha'ora bill of ad, which means that just like by the Adam, ein machsir cause any chitzoron klal, is how much more so lamaila that the whole shoyrish of the bria lamaila doesn't cause any chitzoron. Boy is bara klal. It's not even in the concept or the general definition of Eilamas at all. It is not at all shy to say that his atzma should be mislavish in the Eilamas, because sof kol sof, some meaning of Elikus is mislavish. That's what we call mamalei kol. I mean that sof kol sof there is some form of islabshus in the Eilamas, but it's not islabshus. It's just that it's there, but it's not really there, because it in no way affects him and no way interacts with that inyan, and therefore it's mislavish, but it's not islabshus. It's not in any oven that it's really nitfas in normal oven of islabshus. And that's the famous Maimon of Kutiteru from the Alter Rebbe in Pasha Hamoyav, Nikdashti b'seif b'nei Yisrael, or the first ois, it's a big long ois over there, and that Maimon. But that's exactly what the Alter Rebbe is mavaye, that even though the Eibush is nimtza b'tei kol ha'olamas, hu eino melubash v'nitfas behem, he's there, but he is not affected by being there, even mitzad the penimiyat. How much more so mitzad the makim. Amamere, that's the whole Indian that he's not ein mislabish klau ba'al. Sorry, where are we? He changed the gamme. Aber his atzmus eine begeder ho'elamas va'ene be'erach islabshis be'elamas klau. V'zeh shekosuf kodesh 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 havayat tzvokois. That the Eibishter, how he is, havayat tzvokois, is kodesh, kodesh, kodesh. In other words, you can repeat it 3 times, and he also didn't do it justice. In other words, he's kodesh, 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 havayat tzvokois. So what does that mean? What does it mean that he's kodesh, kodesh, kodesh? And so what does he put in the havayat tzvokois? He could have just said kodesh, kodesh. Havayat, what does it put in the havayat tzvokois? So it's well known in Torah and Pasha Boy, the Alter Rebbe Mavaya, that the Shem tzvokois is how we already go from Oilam HaAtzilus into Oilam Bria Yetzirah V'yah Siva. That brings down the Gilui Elokus into Oilam Biyah, and causes the Gilui Elokus and Bittul of the Oilam even in Biyah V'chulu. As he writes over there, the Alter Rebbe, however, we see from that Havayat tzvokois indicates, first of all, the Shem Havayat was Atzilus, and tzvokois already indicates how it's come down into Elamas Bria Yetzirah V'ah Asiyah, what that's already Tzabav, so it always means host and Ribui Nivroim. Even nonetheless, even though he did enter those worlds, he's still in an even from Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. You can't finish saying how much he's Kodesh. The Atzmus ain't say Kodesh u'muvdal. Eina mislabish klal bi'almin. Rak beginners diburile vad mislabish ba'elamas lahava isan ulahache ya'isan. So here we're talking be'ike that it's not Atzmusa Yisborach that's got anything to do with the elamas. What is Yemislav? I always said that there is such a thing as Mamaliko Almin. And the Asian does actually create the Inyonim. Yeshmi Ayin. We've already pointed out on numerous occasions that Yeshmi Ayin means that the Ayin has to be there in the Yesh to hold him. Otherwise, there is no real reason why he should be there. As in case the Elokus does enter. So therefore the Rebbe said, there is a certain in which it can be called Islapshas. Not real Islapshas, as we pointed out, but what does enter is anyway only ha'orachit chenias bilvad. But that's really one thing leads to the other. Since it's only ha'orachit chenias, then so it's not really in any way affecting him. And therefore you can't say that he is any way involved in the Bria, even though he doesn't. And it's Mamashim, but he doesn't, but he's not involved in it. Klalu, what that's the union of Muvdal va'enu mislavish Klau. Rak beginners diburi levad mislavish ba'elamas lahavayison, to bring them about uleachi vayison. Veloche, says the Rebbe, since Sof Kosov, the whole Mokir, the whole Chayas, and the whole Hisavas, the whole coming into being. Now here we have to notice that he used the word Hisavu, Lahavoison, Ulahachi, Oison. Even the Etzim power to create the elements and to bring them about. But that seems to be a much more essential Gilui Eloki. Even that is only a That's well known, the famous Pio. How can we call the creation Yesh me? The Ayin, the Avish is the Emes Yesh. On the contrary, it should be Ayin me Yesh. The whole Roim Ayin and the Emes Yesh is the Avish. Why do we say Yesh me Ayin? Because the only way you can talk about there being a Bria is if you go through a Zal level and a Kuz, which is Ayin as far as the Atzmus is concerned. It can be called a Gabihim Ayin, well then you can talk about a Yesh. V'lochein eino poel shum shinui bi'atzmusei liyoish shezeu rak b'chinas ha'orach hiteini yes le vod. It ever doesn't cause any change at all whatsoever in the atzmius of Hashem, because it's only a ha'ora chitanius levod. Avo p'chinas atzmusay. Yeah, the Eibishter, how he is beyond all those inyonim. Hu rak b'chinas seivev kol almin she'ena mislabish bohem ki'im b'chinas seivev she'ena mislabish bohem ki'im b'chinas seivev levad. He said that the Eibishter's Atzmas is called Seivev Kol Almin. Now when we say here, the Eibishter's Atzmas, we mean any Gilu and Alakus which is beyond the Inyan Adibu, which is beyond the whole Shurish of the actual Inaman, is called here for our purposes Atzmus. And therefore said the Rebbe, the whole Inyan for Atzmus is not Mislabish, but every Inyan which is Shaykh Mitzad Atzmus is only Seivev Kol Almin. It reigns completely and utterly transcendent in a way that it circumvents all the ilamas, and even though it gave rise to them, but not in a way that it in a way affects him klal. Therefore he's called Tzevei Kol. I would mean that all of them are equally far from him, all of them are equally bottled to him in the way of a circle. A circle it always remains equally related to the point in the middle, they're all distanced in the same way. And that's the Inyam from Sever. So therefore the whole Bria, Miresh Kol Dagen and Tov Kol Dagen, it's all Meruchak Lagamre from Atzmusa Yisborach. There is some form of Mislabchas, or that which is Mislabish. But there Mamali Kol Almin, that's only Dibura Yisborach, which has no reference or no relation whatsoever to Atzmusay. Vach Seiv Kol Almin she'ena mislabish bohem ke'im b'chinas Seivev. It remains completely Seivev Lavod. V'al ze nema es ha'shamayim v'es ha'oretz ani molei, or ni molei, ani mamish molei. Deleis asar ponui minei, rak she'ena mislabish v'nitfas klal. So now the Rebbe adds here a further sort of dimension to the Inyam by bringing that pasuk. That's a pasuk in, if I'm not mistaken, there's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu and Ovi. But he says that as a Shamayim as a Oretz ani molei. Yeah, the whole Shamayim v'Oretz. Shamayim referring to the Elamas Ha'elyonim, and Oretz referring to the Elamas Taktoinim. In other words, all the Madregas and everything which came about, everything which was Mishabeh, is Ani referring to Atzmus Yisborach. Yeah, Molei, I fill it up. Now here we have to be careful. It doesn't mean I fill it up like we say Mamale Kol Almin. When we say the expression Mamale Kol Almin, then we mean a oil which fills up a kli. Here we say as a Shomayim V'Oretz Ani Molei means that I am present everywhere. I fill up the whole Inyan, but I'm not nitfas in it beklal. In other words, that here the word Molei is not from Malei, but Molei meaning I fill everything up. And that means to say that the Eibishter Batzmusi, how he's Seivev, he's everywhere. It's not try to say, even B'Pnimius Nivroim, even inside the Nivra, he's there. With the same way that he's outside the Nivra. Or the same way that he's completely transcendent from the Nivra, in the same way he's there inside the Nivra. He's not B'Hislabsha, who lo nitfas, v'lo mislabi. What is Yem Mislabish is only Ha'ora Chitanius Bilbad, Ha'ora Chitanius, the Chitanius. That's Yem Mislabish and an even from Islabshas Mamalei Koham. Oh, but to be careful from the expression Molei and Mamalei. When you say Mamalei, you mean I'm filling up something. When you say Molei, you just mean I'm there. Everything is full of me. That the Eibishter's Atzmus is everywhere. It's not shaykh in any way to say that he's not present, even B'Pnimis Ani Roim, but he's not nitfas, he's not B'Hislabshas for him. And that's the Chiddush of that pasuk, and that's what the Tikkun Zohar says. Leis asar ponui mi. There's no asar. Asar means to place, or madrega, which is free of him. You can't say that the Eibishter is anywhere where he's not. Rach she'ena mislabish, he doesn't enter them. Ve'eno nitfas klal, ve'nitfas klal, he's not nitfas klal. We have a very fascinating idea that the Eibusha did cause a certain gilui mi'atzmai to enter the olamas and to make them what they are, and to continuously give them that hashpah, but it has no reference. Lo yizbarach, he's around, but he's around in a way that you're not teifas him. And that's why, even though the Eibusha is present in everything, he's even present in this table. Atzmusi is barak, but we're not teifas because we're completely in another level. Our whole Kabbalah, Sachayas is even achale legamri. And therefore, in order to be even masik, the whole union from Samech Vav, you have to have a tremendous amount of Yegiya and Aliyah Sanefesh v'chulei, to have even the faintest soga, but there are shlila in the union from Sefer Kol Almi. As a defa, that's the picture of the Bria given ad koi. Ani havaya loishon nisi, nothing caused any shinu in me, because everything is only a orachitanius bilvad, that has no yachas cloud to the me, to the atzmas, as you might say, the very essence of him. It's a both thing we've learned, as it were, both thing. On one hand, he does make and he does give of himself, but he does it in such a way that they're moved on me. Therefore, it's considered as if it doesn't in any way cause any nafkamina or shinui legabe is bora. And those are the pshat. Ani Hashem lo shah, ki ani avai lo shah, shonizi. On that basis, the Rebbe now says a fascinating cloud, which we'll deal with more as we go along. He said, Yuvan tam v'das. He said, now we'll understand the tam and the das haramak. What the Ramak, the Rabbeinu Moshe Kodavira, what he said, the pirush ein seif nikra mohuse viat mose shel aboirei mamish. What we thought that was one of the less acceptable arguments, that the word "ain safe" was referring mamish latzmusi's book. That's what the Ramak tained. We had tainers, we wouldn't say, but the real expression for latzmusi is "ain loy tchilo." And "ain safe" is not really such a big yichus legabi de Eibusha. So he said, no. On the basis of what we just said, we'll be able to understand Tuf Tam. What is the shitta and the tam vadas of the Ramak? Why did he say that the expression "ain't safe" is referring to the atzmas? So the boira is bara. We're going to see that the word "ain't safe" means literally "ain't end, ain't gvul." Amamira bli gvul. If you can just picture it to yourself. I don't know if you can, but if we can be matayel atzmein or something which is bli gvul, that's what ain't safe means. That there's no end. Amamira, that's in Gansen another type of form of existence altogether. It's another gather altogether, and we can only experience things which are Islamshas for Tfisa. We have no picture whatsoever of anything beyond that. And when you say the word ain't safe, you're talking about another form of existence altogether. Even when you say ain't safe, forget about ain't like tchila for a moment. Although even when you say ain't safe, and the Rebbe is going to go even deeper. He said that's going to imply that if something just can go without end, that's what ain't safe means. It's absolutely unlimited in the way it can express itself. Then there's no way that you could possibly describe any describing term or terminology for such an entity. Because every form of terminology that you would put in would in some way cause it to be limited or in some way nidfas or related to that particular concept. And if I wouldn't be mamish meet you seen if it ain't safe. Because ain't safe doesn't mean it's going to keep going without getting tired. Ain't safe means that it's unlimited. As if it's unlimited, ain't b'zeh kol inyan shel prat or izador yachol lagbil oto. So he said, the Ramak is 100% right. Well, the Ramak said that ain't safe is referring to Atmas HaBoire, he's right. Because anything which came about from the Boire, anything he made, must in some way have come from him. It's got some, as it were, start or limitation. We're not talking about an Enoi Tchila. We're talking about the essence fact that it started off. It must have started off with some kavana or some inyan. There's something in it that it some way limited it. It's not immediate as inyan Ein Sof. And then we're going to see that what the Ramah Mipano, he told that there can be certain things that they can be Ein Sof or what's in Aboire. They can be. They can be Ein Sof, but they're not Ein Sof like here. They're only Ein Sof because he made them that way. Not because really they're that way. They're not really the immediate inyan for Ein Sof. And if the Rebbe is going to now, for this whole next period of this whole Maimah, he's going to elevate and put on a high flag the inyan for Ein Sof. That the word, the expression Ein Sof is a very, very elevated thing. And since we just said that everything in the whole is all just B'derech ha'orach Chitonius bilvad, and it's all limited in some form of Islavshus B'derech Chitonius, when you say Ein Sof, you couldn't say anything better about the Eivishter K'moishehu, because he is the shlila of all these inyanim which we just said. B'tachlis. Just by calling him Ein Sof. So therefore the Ramak is going to have a very good point that for argumentative purpose and for all purposes of giving out b'derech what you might call hamuva l'chol maven, when you say Ein Sof, then you mean after some point. Therefore he says Yuvan Tam V'das. That's what the that's what the Ramak said, that the Ein Sof is referring to the expression Ein Sof, Al-Mahu Sof Atzmus Shel HaBoreh Mamish, for Kol Masha Netzal Mimenu, anything which has been made come close from him, anything which he's brought about, even B'derech Netzal, Lo Yinikra Klal Ein Sof. It can't be called unlimited or Ein, how do you call it, Bligvul. B'tamoi, and his reason, Ki Ein Loima Ein Sof Shemoyer Al Bligvul Mamish. You can't say the word Ein Sof, which indicates Bligvul without any limit at all. Rak Olav Yisborach Mamish, only in reference to him, blessed be he. V'lo Al Dova HaMusuvav, not something which has got a cause. It's been caused, Musuvav. It's been caused, V'nimshach Mimenu. V'hu levad HaKadmoin, he is the only Kadmoin, and he is the only Ein. So here we see an amazing diuk that the Rebbe said he's the only primordial, and he's the only Ein Sof. What Ein Ochanami? If you come to understand how the Eibishter in the words of the Ramak is Ein Sof, then you automatically understand that he's Kadman also. Ein Ochanami. That will lead you to understand that he's got the immediate Shleimus also being Ein Loi Tachila. Aber beneged le'inyoneinu, for the purposes of giving the Heifach of what Nivroim and the Heifach of what Netzolim are, it's enough to say Ein Sof. For Kilo Ein Tzorech Yosem is a Pili place from Azar. And Mamel follows that Lafi said, having given the beer that we just gave in Dibure and in the whole concept of the creation, we now understand how Ein Sof is automatically showing everything which came about from him is Baruch, even for those things which he used as an intermediary to reach that level. That's even for Netzolim. But Netzolim with the infant spheres Tatzil. So therefore he says, and here we will just complete with this coming sentence. Ki hine inyan Ein Sof, who based Dvarim. The Rebbe said the concept of Ein Sof has got himself two inyanim. Ha'alev, shu b'chinas Ein Sof leis pashtusei. It can spread literally without end. It can just keep going, as it were, without end. Ein Sof leis pashtusei. And now we're going to have quite a view in what does it mean Ein Sof leis pashtusei. Yes, shezeh inyan. Ein Sof b'li gvul. That's the inyan of Ein Sof, how it means without limitation. She'ein Sof leis pashtusei, that it can literally just keep going and spread forth without end. He said, V'amiti Indian, there Shai Rakbats Musmami. He said, and that meat is a Indian, that the Avish is just there without end, and he just keeps going without end. Well, that's only shot to say you're not Musa is Bola. And that's what we're going to have to develop on this word, is pashtas, because the Avish, his pashtas by him is good. He doesn't really have in his essence, he doesn't have any pashtas. Because pashtas means like a ha'orim. But what do you mean by saying ain't safe, is pashtu say? So we're going to see that we mean that he himself can be literally just go, or is, without end. Therefore, ain't safeless pashtusei refers more to him kamoshu, and that's another chiddush, that even the things which are just mishpashet mimenu b'derech ha'ora, they can also be ain't safe. But the end ain't safe, his pashtusei is in him yisbara. In Mamil, we're developing a very good case for the Ramah. And as we go along, we'll see that the Rebbe is very noted to say that the Ramah almost takes the cup. But we'll see later on as we go along that the one who really, as you might say, takes the cup is the Arizal. We'll see the talk of the one who really gets the ultimate. But the one who really gains the big gold cup is the Alter Rebbe, how he touches the Arizal.